sure you're all aware this year's been really challenging. The cafe's been shut, we've done no weddings. But through all that, we've managed to increase turnover. We look like we're going to do above a 10% net profit, which I'm really happy with. And it's been a really interesting year. So I'd like to welcome everybody online, but we're making no bones about it. This is a recruitment exercise today for the Farm Retail Association. We decided to do it free of charge, bring Malcolm in and invite non-members. So I know there's a lot of members, but talking to the non-members, why should you join the Farm Retail Association? Well, I think the number one point I need to make is it will make it more profit. There is no doubt about it. If you start talking to your peers, especially in a year like this, and we start looking at things like, you know, my cafe wages are 28% of turnover. Is that good, bad? I don't know. And people in the Farm Retail Association will openly talk and open up, and they'll tell you how they've got these lower figures, those that are lower than you. Certainly, you know, should we be charging for pumpkin festivals? Pick your own. This has been a brilliant year to charge entry, and we've had loads and loads of Zoom meetings, and it's helped us come up with a plan and keep the business on track. So that's one reason to join. The other reason is you're going to make some really good friends that you can just ring up. And I mean, prime example, I did strawberries on tabletops for the first time this year, and I didn't know if I needed to put slug pellets on. It's a stupid question. So I run a good friend that's been doing it for years, and you build up these relationships. It just helps you on your way. And I've managed to make a really successful first year of the tabletop strawberries. That's on the back of the FRA. There's also plenty of benefits. You get the booker rebate. I've had over £2,000 this year, and I only buy Coke, salt and pepper, alcohol from them. Credit card terminal supplies. There's a really good deal with Payment Sense. You don't have to go with that deal, but it's a really good benchmark to start it when you're looking at changing your credit card suppliers. And, you know, the staff are really tired at the moment. It's COVID fatigue, I'm calling it, or present traumatic stress syndrome. You can just see them all pulled down. And I've been chatting to other like-minded farm shops, and they've got the exact same problem, which is why we had a bit of a meeting, and we decided that it'd be great to bring Malcolm in and do an open talk, because we had Malcolm at the conference and he was absolutely awesome at lifting the team and giving you ideas how to do that. So I think we'll hand over to you, Malcolm, and say, how can we lift the team?
Okay, thanks very much, Rob. Thanks, Jenny. Lovely to see you all. So I'm going to very unusually share some PowerPoint slides with you, I think. Again. Yeah. So hopefully you can see that screen. Can you all? Yeah. Well, I can't hear you, so that's good. So I hope we can. So yeah, I'm going to spend just over half an hour maybe with you talking about some ideas about motivation and morale. And I think we'll have about 5 or 10 minutes at the end. If you want to collate some questions in chat, which Jenny can sort of facilitate for me, we'll try and answer those. And also, if you want in the chat function to share some ideas about what you have done, which has been successful along these lines, or what you could do along these lines, which you might think is a new idea from this afternoon, then again, feel free to share that. As I think Jenny is also recording this, so you can look back at this, but also if you, I'll send the slides, as these slides, to Jenny as well, so she's got them as an aid memoir on what we're going to discuss today. So it's about boosting team morale, because we have gone through, it has been a difficult year, even though I do lots of SMEs, you know, like your businesses, I do lots of small and medium enterprises, and it really annoys me that, of course, the government strategies are always around only 4% of the UK's economy, the Shell International and everything else. And 96% of us, including you and me, we are the economy, and yet we're never represented, it seems to me, on the decisions. So and I go around lots of SMEs, and you know, at some of those meetings, they score sort of scores on the doors about how well their business is doing. And even though their personal well-being is quite low. As Rob just said, people are very tired. I think they've got some stresses on COVID. I think they've got some real issues. We've had some people who've been on furlough the whole period until the end of last month. I run 7 businesses, and they've come back and they're quite depressed because even though they're back at work and their job never went, and now they're getting paid full time, and they just have in the back of their minds, you were able to manage 6 months without me. And that's a massive mental illness problem. And we've employed, psychologists to come in now and try and help them through that. The fact people survive without me. So, I think the personal issues are really important to address, but on the same score chart, that they're all doing marvelously well. They're scoring 8s and 9s and 10s. And so the economy, maybe after this month has gone by, I think it will really pick up. So a lot of what I'm trying to say to you this afternoon is you've really got to be prepared for, I think, a very good December. There's lots of things that, people say the new normal. I hate that because I think these lockdowns are stupid. I'm writing a book about it. You have one for nothing if you want. But we do learn things. And one of the things we're learning, I think, is people won't want to go to city centres anymore. They just won't want to shop that way. And people like Intu have even closed down, haven't they? They've gone bankrupt. So you can see, my wife runs a small retail store in fashion in Ashbourne, where I live, and their stuff is flying out. It's because people haven't got money, they're not getting married, they're not going on honeymoon, they're not going on holidays, they're not going abroad, they're not traveling. So there's lots of money flying about. And I think people want to invest in farm shops like I do myself. I'm near Denstone Farm Shop, and we just go there all the time because it's just such a nice experience. And I don't think that will change. So I think it's quite optimistic, this future we've got together. So this little talk is called Boosting Team Morale, and I'd like you to make some notes of what morale is really. When you've got low morale, or when your teams have low morale, what tends to happen is their personal growth has stopped. So you've stopped training, you've stopped learning and development, they've stopped getting promoted, they've stopped being given extra tasks. And that's a big thing in a crisis, isn't it? Because the first thing we chop off in a crisis or in a downturn is education and training, because we think, well, that's a profit and loss thing, and we better not do that because we haven't got enough money. But actually, this is the time when you really need to start investing in new people to keep morale high, to feel like they're part of something which is growing, because one of the key motivators, of course, is growth. I think a lack of clarity sometimes. I think in a business like our businesses, sometimes, and I've looked at a lot of your websites since I last talked at the conference earlier this year, I think it was, and they don't have a very strong sense of clarity of what you're all about, what your value system is, what you think you are. Some do and some don't. And I'd like you to think after this afternoon that you've really got to get that byline, that sense of what you're all about, whether it's fresh food delivers, whatever it might be. You've got to get that imprinted on people's minds. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because as you go into a crisis like we've been through, and as we're going to very hard-working times like we are, if there's a lack of clarity, it really lowers morale quite drastically. People across Conco would change. They haven't got the time for change. They haven't got the time to manage a crisis. They can't be expected to drop everything they're already doing and rethink. It's not their fault. It's probably our fault that we're invoking a change, or the change has happened to them. So, and people will never align with bad aims, which the government's giving us very bad aims now, with very bad data, with very bad science, and we just don't align with it. So morale's dropped because of that reason. Of course, our vulnerabilities increased because we feel that our business might be vulnerable to closure. We might be vulnerable to redundancy after furloughs ended at the end of this month now. So that's a problem. We don't get communicated to as often because everybody has their hands to the pump. So we don't communicate as well as we should. And actually, it's been proven from Zoom meetings and everything else that the increased communication has actually increased morale and increased openness and increased trust and increased faith in your colleagues, which is interesting. So we need to discuss that a bit. And recognition goes off. We don't reward people. We don't say thank you as much, remotely, and we're all too busy. So they're the things I'd really like to address in this boosting team morale. And I hope one thing that comes across strongly is that you feel very optimistic. I talk to a lot of behavioral economists, and they say this country's going to be flying after all this. It's going to be really flying. So I think we need to get prepped. I said to my wife, who's closing down tonight, I said, you don't worry about closing down for a month. Just get prepped for December the 2nd, because stuff will be flying out the door because there's so much money around. So that's my first little speech. It's almost the end of my speech, I suspect. So let's start a little bit of some actions that you could do alongside this, I think. If I could do actions, that would be quite good. This is the Japanese word for crisis. And it's formed of two separate words, really. And the first symbol on the left is dangerous, and the second symbol on the right stands for opportunity. So in Chinese and Japanese, a lot of the Far Eastern cultures, the word crisis and opportunity is actually the same, and it's the way you look at it. And if you're sort of pessimistic type person, or you've got a pessimistically run business, you'll tend to look at all the downsides and all the problems, and of course that lowers morale drastically in a team. Whereas if you take it, well, this is an opportunity, we can learn, we can do things differently, and if things that we do differently actually seem to be better, we can embed those things in the future. I've just had lots of meetings the last few weeks with the businesses I run about, well, what have we learned that's quite good that we actually can continue to do? And I don't think it's Zoom every day. I think people need human beings, but there's lots of things we now do slightly differently. We've got rid of the non-adding value activities. So for instance, you may be thinking about a click and collect scheme, or your cafe in the car park, or takeaway food, or deliver food locally to old people, or whatever it might be, because the cafes are shut down at the moment. And all those might be ideas that you might think, well, why wouldn't we continue to do that? Why wouldn't we continue to have a drive-through? Why do we go back to the norm when actually that could be an offering in addition to what we normally do? So I think that's really important, to start thinking that this is an opportunity, and anybody who has any time off, it's an opportunity to rethink and re-engage with what we might be doing. So my short talk is involved on 4 areas, really. We're going to talk about a little bit about morale, which we've done about crises and what that means, and how to manage a crisis and how to manage hard work. And then we're going to talk a little bit about empathy and the types of leadership you can do, and how leadership styles might change depending on individual people. A little bit I touched on last time I met you, some of you back at the conference. The third thing I want to talk about is something to do with team spirit. This is esprit de corps, this idea of inclusivity and feeling part of a team, which is a basic human need. And finally, we're going to talk about something we do really badly, I think, which is recognize people and have fun and make it a bit of a game, really. If you don't like games, go into finance. I apologize to people already in finance, but that's really it. So let's talk a little bit about this first one, which is morale and resilience. So the first thing that I've learned through this last 6 months is, and a really important thing, I suppose, is this idea that as businesses grow, you tend to lose the connectivity between the owner, the boss, the managing director, whatever you've got, however you're structured. Most of us will be private businesses, no doubt. And when you first started, you had a great idea. You had a great idea of starting a farm shop with very fresh meat, which is beautifully made food, a delicatessen perhaps. You could expand into you could have a little indoor cafe. And you had this idea that in our area, that's not done very well. People would have to go to supermarkets or something else. So somewhere there was a great idea at the very beginning. You took on a person, another person. You started with 3 or 4 or 5. And the issue with starting with 3 or 4 or 5, of course, is the vision is perfect. The sense of direction is completely perfect. You're all, you come for the blood and the sweat and the tears and the excitement and the engagement and the energy. And of course, as businesses grow, you've got now probably 15 staff or 30 staff. I went to a farm shop the other day with 75 staff, amazing amount of people doing all sorts of things. And you think, my word, you lose that connectivity. You lose that sense of why are we here? What's it all about? What's a real value system? And I think one of the things that you need to make a note of from this conversation is you need to recreate that sense of connectivity to the values, because as we grow, we started off with a strong sense of why, we go through how we do it, and now people are coming to work and just executing a system with no sense of why we're doing it. And of course, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. People aren't going to your farm shops because the food's great, or they're going because it's a good feeling, it's a gut feel. They don't analyze the food at the British, they don't send it off to a lab. It just feels great or isn't, and the ambience is great or it isn't, and the staff feel nice or they don't. We don't really analyze it. It's right brain. And to get that connectivity, we've got to communicate far more regularly than we normally communicate. And one of the things I've learned from this lockdown and COVID generally is we communicated a lot with our staff, because some of them have been at home. And we've done like a video every Friday, a video every Thursday. We've sent off a piece of information. And they've all been their morale's been so much enhanced by that, because suddenly they feel they're talking to the boss, they're talking to the person who owns the business or is MD of the business. And they never had that before. And one of the things we've just discussed is they want that to continue. Now, it's succinct and it's quite short form. It's not very long, but it's interesting that that connection has made a huge difference to people feeling that sense of belonging. So I think this idea of making real connections and establishing them through this, hard working time before Christmas when everybody's completely knackered, I think it's a really good idea to touch base with them, because otherwise we're all too busy. And as leaders, we should be doing that. And the other real corollary to that, of course, is people's biggest motivator is a sense of purpose or a sense of meaning. And I don't know whether you've had in your businesses a sense of meaning or a sense of purpose. Am I actually doing this right? I'm not doing. It's a very bad presenter. I'm a very bad presenter. You should be on that screen, shouldn't you? This idea of a sense of vision, a sense of direction, a sense of what we're all about. Now, I don't know whether you've got a vision statement or a mission statement, but you should have something, a byline, which is your catch-all phrase, which describes why you're doing what you're doing and what you believe, what's your belief system. And a lot of businesses that I've talked to in this past year, 2020, they've either tried to re-establish what that belief system is and relaunch it in a way, or if it's completely out of date now and things have changed so much, to try and use this time to re-establish what we're all about. And I'd recommend to you, this idea, I've got an idea later on for you, which is when people start back at work on December the 2nd and you're still running all the way through, I think you need to relaunch your business a little bit. Apropos Christmas and the festivities, I think you just need to relaunch that byline underneath what you are, a little byline which says why you do what you do, what's important to you, what's in your persona, what's in your value system. And from what I've seen that you publish on websites, you don't do that. And I think that would be really important to re-establish that sense of direction, that sense of why you're doing what you're doing and what you believe in. Some of my businesses, and I think this is really important. I'm going to show you a photograph now of a business I run in Lancashire, and they put all the values on the wall. And the interesting thing about this is that's on display to the employees. This is an estate agency. It's on display to obviously the employees, obviously people who come for interview, but also members of the general public. And I think to have something like that behind your counter, some of you have got it. I've noticed some of you have writing on the. I'm a big advocate of writing on the wall. Some of you have these things which are just expressing what you're all about and what your standards are. And the little bylines underneath are expressing what you mean by exceptional service. It's okay to say excellent service, but what you mean by it. Here's another reception area of the business I run in down south, which is, again, there's the values that business has, and underneath is what that means to us and what we try and do to make that come alive. And I think that's important. One of my biggest clients for a long time now has been the RNLI, and as you go through the door, this is their first poster, and it says, "Welcome to the RNLI, the charity that saves lives at sea." So you're in no doubt what they do, and also you're in no doubt what they really don't do. They don't just save lives, it has to be at sea. They won't save lives on land. And it's obsessive. These ideas of vision and value become they're obsessive. And I'd like you to think about, this is a way of really, and people feel a real sense of belonging here, because they're not just invented in a boardroom and stuck on a wall with some blue tack, which will fall off when it dries out. And you think, here's another idea from a smoke-filled room. They're lived and breathed. And that's what makes people connect to them. And that people become very proud of it, and that develops a really strong sense of morale and motivation. So have an idea of launching what your values are before Christmas, and sort of try and get some writing done on the wall. It's very easy to do, and try and get some idea that what makes you different. Why should people permanently come and shop with you instead of what they've done historically? I think that's important. Here's a door that I embossed in another business I run in the south, which is you're not here to be average, you're here to be awesome. So if you're feeling a bit tired, take a walk, which is people laugh at. But it has an ethos as you cross the threshold. There's a sort of an idea that it's about energy, it's about people expressing their ideas of energy. The other thing, of course, we're going through some difficult times, and people are, we're working hard, and it's difficult to manage change. And I think one of the things that you need to be aware of course, is this idea of managing change or managing a crisis or managing exceptional periods of time like we're in now, where people seem to be completely tired, and we're running up to the most busy period of the year, I imagine, for you as well as me. So I think what I wanted to share with you is sort of you've probably seen something like this before, a Fisher transition curve, or this is Kubler-Ross, but there is a set of emotions that people go through when they're going through difficult times. And if the y-axis is something to do with motivation or confidence or happiness, and that's sort of low to high, and the x-axis is sort of time, as you go along this transition, people start off relatively slightly less than mediocre happy because they've heard a rumor, or they've heard the government announce something, or it's been leaked and they have to announce something soon. A big problem last week, wasn't it, with the government, was it got leaked, so everybody started to worry without the actual facts. So people always start quite low down. And then, of course, there's always an element of shock, and you've got to manage that, because you know you're going to get to a better place. We know as leaders we're going to get to a better place as long as we are confident and have that degree of authenticity and consistency and constancy. We'll get to a better place. But that's lucky for us, because we can see the end from the beginning. But most of the people that work with us and for us, they can't. So we've got to manage them through these emotions of shock. And then, of course, some people are in denial. It'll never happen to me. We're in IT. We exist, whatever happens. And then you go through this depression phase down to denial, don't you? Where people get angry, people go into denial, people get fearful of what might happen. Can they do the job they're now going to be asked to? Will they even have a job? People get sometimes annoyed that maybe if you tell them to do something different, they may have been doing the job wrong previously. So there's a matter of guilt. And then they slowly bargain their way out of it. And sometimes people get so depressed they can't work out of it. And in the end, they'll test it and they'll approve it and they'll try it and they'll see and they'll get through to the other end. So it's printed like a roller coaster, this map. There's a roller coaster of emotions going on with your people right now. And probably we're not trained psychologists. We're certainly not trained psychiatrists. Somehow we've got to deal with that emotional map. And I think one of the ways to deal with this as leaders is to, and it's an individual thing. Teams don't go through this map. Individuals do. You've got to ask everybody genuinely, individually, through these next 2 months, in this very busy period, how are you? And don't just ask it as a bland, good morning, how are you? Is sit them down and say, how are you? Where are you feeling? Are you feeling okay? Are you feeling this? And try and support them, because most people just want to be listened to. And that's enough. And that would help you solve this problem. You've got to try and smooth out these peaks and troughs of this. It'll be brilliant, it'll be rubbish. It's not going to be. It's going to be slightly better at the end of it. We're all going to come out of it. And we need to be, psychologists these days as leaders, because you've got to understand that people are on different pathways at different speeds through this map of change, and that's really important to understand, I think. Frederick Herzberg was a psychologist, and he said a lot of the things we have in our life are so-called hygiene factors. They're dissatisfiers. So things like if these things aren't right, our supervision, our status, our salaries, or whatever it might be, we need them, and they have to be right, and they can't be inequitable, they can't be unfair, but they don't of themselves motivate. What Frederick Herzberg said the motivators were for human beings are these things on the left-hand side, and I've summarized them on another page, really. Herzberg's motivators are people want independence. I teach a lot in local authorities, and I do a lot of people in care homes, whether it's care homes for old people or care homes for young teenagers with Asperger's or autism. And you've heard it before, what people want is independence and control of their own lives. And it's the same with all human beings, it's the same with all of us. We want a degree of self-determination, we want a degree of, and of course, in times of crisis and when we're stressed, as Rob mentioned, and when it's hard work, our degree of independence sort of goes. We start to lose this idea of autonomy and control. We're out of control. And we don't like being out of control. It's really stressful. If you go on a railway station and the train's delayed and you don't know why, and the communication is really poor in the UK about systems like that, we feel stressed because we're out of control. Much better if you sit on a railway station, somebody says, the train's delayed, it is 24 minutes, it won't be any longer than 24 minutes, it will be here because that's happened and it will be fixed. You think, we can wait for hours as British people normally. But it's that feeling of loss of control and loss of autonomy and loss of independence, which is demoralizing people. And that's what people are feeling now. So address those things and try and make them feel like they're still in control of the environment they're in. So Herzberg said the motivators are independence, autonomy, control, growth, and opportunity. the ability to keep growing. I said one of the demotivators is that people feel they're not growing anymore. They're just grinding against the mill. They're just, they're just so occupied with the work. So what are we doing about learning development? What are we doing about retraining? What are we doing about, giving them slightly new tasks to expand that role? Otherwise, it becomes slightly turgid and massively demotivating. And the final thing, of course, is praise, some degree of recognition, which when we're busy, we never do. In fact, some leaders never praise anyway, because they think, well, you're paid to do the job, I'll just tell you off, sort of carrot and stick. Douglas McGregor said many years ago, there's two theories of motivation. One is theory X, where people have to be constantly cajoled to come to work because they wouldn't come otherwise. And theory Y, which is, no, people like to be transformed and they like recognition, they like opportunity, they like growth, and of course they do, he's right. So make sure that you keep praising people and demonstrate that you praise people and make that public. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. And finally, of course, what people massively need is a sense of human belonging, a sense of social belonging. Mary Parker Follett famously said, people primarily come to work for the social interaction. I think you should write that down and make a mental note of it. People primarily come to work for the social interaction. So this Zoom nonsense, this has to go. Yeah, it's great for some things, and I wouldn't travel 4 hours for a 5-minute meeting anymore, but you've got to get people together. You've got to have these team meetings. And that's what Hertzberg said motivates human beings. So let's talk about well-being. You've got to look after people in a sort of psychological sense, I think. But before you can do that, I think the first thing to make a note of, and you need to make some personal notes here, and I'm not going to start talking about, meditation, or I'm not going to go through a whole day on well-being, but it does start with you. It does start with you, mental preparedness and mental well-being. It does start, do you feel optimistic? Do you feel like you're in control and have some degree of autonomy and are in charge of, yeah, things change, environmental conditions change and things affect us, but do you feel you're in charge and you've still got a grip on it and you still know what to do and you can still stand back and take a heli view and start to strategically make decisions? Because if you feel like that, as your employee, I'll feel great about that because you're not panicking. And also, are you looking after your own well-being? Are you drinking enough water? Is your diet right? Are you taking enough exercise? Are you doing enough resting? Are you looking after your body? All those things are really important. And if you're not, then you'll be tired and you won't express energy. And if you're not enthusiastic or engaged or energetic, I won't be. If you don't get it, I won't get it. So this idea of well-being, it definitely starts with the boss having that sense of, yeah, I'm exactly the same as I was yesterday. I'm on top of my game and it's great. And people have enjoyed, haven't they, since this COVID crisis? They've enjoyed the new balance between work and home. And I think that will continue. We've just done a thing in one of our businesses where you have to come in Monday to Wednesday. We have the choice of working at home on Thursday and or Friday, which I think is great because they say with a shorter working week, productivity goes up. Now, I know we're running shops and you can't really work from home, but nevertheless, it does start with that nice balance of work and it starts with us. And then, of course, it cascades. What's the work environment like? Does it exude well-being? Have we got nice facilities for the staff? Do we, whatever we might do there? Are our principles and values there? Because people need meaning, they need purpose, they need something that they clearly stated. We talked about that before. Is there some social activity still going on, even though we're busy, or are we too busy for that? Don't talk to me about having a sandwich or playing table tennis or having lunch, because I haven't got time. We're massively under pressure here. And that's the real reason why people come to work. So what are we doing about that? And is there health and lifestyle? Are we looking after that? Do we give people gym memberships? Do we have people? Are we allowing people to go for a walk and think about something? Or, what are we actually? Are we encouraging them to be healthy themselves? So there's a massive thing, isn't there, in terms of morale and motivation, in terms of your own well-being and theirs. Here's a map on leadership styles, and I think you've got to understand that with different people, different colleagues at different periods, some people will fly through this. People like a challenge. Some people like challenge more than mundanity, really. Some people just thrill on firefighting. They absolutely, you'll have them, you can recognize them, you can probably name them now. The people who actually get thrilled by putting out fires and this is great, this is new. And of course, we all do to some extent, as long as we don't lose control. So you've got to be careful that you can change your style appropriate to where that individual is, from a sort of highly directive style on the right-hand side of this diagram, where maybe they're a little bit demotivated and a little bit unsure of what to do. I think you've got to be slightly authoritative. You've got to have a tell style. And then if they still need direction, but they don't really know how to do it, they need a coaching style. So you need sometimes to be a coach, and you don't really know this job, and you're under some sort of stress. So I'll sort of coach you through it so you get it yourself. And then, of course, when they become quite motivated by it, but they still need developing, you can be supportive. Go and try it yourself. I'll check you're doing okay. I'll check in with you, and then that's supportive. And in the end, they become highly motivated, highly competent. And of course, then you can take a laissez-faire attitude to management, which is you can delegate, you can empower people. So it's just a map of different leadership styles. And I just want to emphasize to you, again, teams don't run through this map. Individuals do. You move from tell to sell to consult to share to delegate to empower, depending on where they are in terms of their motivation, their happiness, or their competence. And you have to select the style. This person feels really vulnerable, so I'm going to have quite a coaching style with this person. Whereas this person's flying and they love it all and they just can't get enough of the hard work. So I can lead them to it, really. You sort of intrinsically know who they are, but there's a map to help you what style you might adopt. Abraham Maslow was a contemporary of Frederick Herzberg, and he did another piece of research where he interviewed 185,000 people across the world, and it'll never be repeated. The data bank that he produced from face-to-face conversations would never be repeated again, not face-to-face. So it's a really interesting data bank. And one of the theories that came from Maslow's work was this so-called hierarchy of needs, which you may have seen before. And what Maslow postulated was people need a level of need satisfying before they can access the next level. So at the base levels, there's physiological needs, and the top levels, there's psychological needs. So people want their survival testing at the bottom, and then there's safety, and then there's social belonging, and then if they're all S's, and then there's self-esteem, and then there's self-actualization. So it's progressive. And the boxes at the top are psychological, they're motivational. The boxes at the bottom are hygiene factors. So you've got to understand your workforce in terms of where are they on this map? Are they faffing about in the safety and security box, feeling quite vulnerable, feeling quite uncertain, feeling quite unsure about lives, wages, jobs, mortgages, all that stuff? Because they'll never rise, they'll never be great for the customers coming into the shop then. Or are they actually quite, is there a lot of self-esteem? Is there a lot of praise? Is there a lot of recognition? Do they feel good about themselves? Do they feel as an individual great? That's the top of this triangle. So you can put your people, where are they behaving on this triangle? And my contention is from this, not Maslow's, is people reporting to you can only operate at a level higher than you're operating. So if you're faffing about, slightly concerned, slightly worried, slightly don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, slightly don't know how you're going to get through this, so will they. If you're at the very high level here with a certain degree of, I've got a persona and I'm consistent with that, and I've got a certain degree of authenticity, I think we're going to do great, I think we're going to have some things different, but I think I'm in control of it, then they'll be energized by that. So I don't think people that report to you, and I've run 25,000 people in the last job I had years ago, people can't access a level higher than you're operating at. So what level are you operating at? Are you optimistic and get it and feel good and feel energetic and energized and excited? Or you feel a bit down, a bit disengaged, a bit disenfranchised? Because they're going to be exactly the same level you are. And what you want, of course, is them to be attracted to your level of energy. And then you'll have a business which flies through all this. Of course, that's true. So let's talk a little bit about team spirit now. How do we develop teams together? Because Mary Parker Follett said people primarily come to work for the social interaction. So there's some things to make teams feel cohesive. Well, the first one is operate within a core set of values. Now, I've talked about publishing values, and I've talked about putting them on a wall, whatever they are, the 5 values. We're professional, we care, whatever it is you think your values are, they need to be visible to people. And also through crises or hard times or hard working times, you need to be consistent with them. A lot of businesses forget the values when we go through a crisis. I know we said we were going to be, customer centric, but not now. We're in a crisis and people think, well, what was that all about? So you've got to make sure you drive your values consistently through hard work. One of your values might be something to do with quality. It might be we have very high quality food, freshly prepared, freshly slaughtered, presented to the shelf within 24 hours. And you can't say through hard times, well, forget that, we'll just have to make do because we haven't got the supplies or whatever. You can't do it. So make sure you're consistent with your value set. Keep providing this clear sense of why you're doing what you're doing and what you believe. You have to get across what you believe. And if you do that, people will buy into that and develop a strong esprit de corps. Try and build trust by being open and honest and transparent. What's not happening with the government and why we're disliking it all and so frustrated by it all is there's no transparency. They're not following the science. Even the scientists aren't following the science. They've become politicians. So nobody's transparent anymore. And that's really frustrating. At the very beginning, if you remember in March, Whitty and the others, Valence, they were talking about science and you sort of trusted them. You thought, oh, they're the most trustworthy people on the planet. I really like them. Boris Johnson's an idiot, but at least we've got two. But now they've all become idiots. So just think about that in your own workplace, this openness, this transparency of what we're doing. You've got to be really transparent of what you're doing. We're doing this, we're doing that, we're closing the cafe, but we're doing that, we're restarting this. That's what people want. People don't mind the truth, but we try and hide behind it because they think it's going to be bad news. People can deal with bad news, but we should tell them. Value every player as equal and all different. Of course, they're all different people in terms of their idiosyncrasies, but each member has a valid contribution and make sure that that's recognized and made public. And celebrate early and frequently about developing team spirit and have some team games on the wall and stuff like that would be really good. We never praise, do we? We always tell people off. We never have time for praise. We never have sunshine meetings where we start to gather together at the end of a working day. I bet you don't last it. After the shop's shut and you shut the doors, you don't spend 10 minutes paid and say, what did we do that was great today? And what clients said it was fantastic? And what did people say to us? And no, you just go home. But if you have a problem, you'll stay behind and discuss it ad infinitum. So that's normal. So make sure you find an opportunity to praise. People want to have fulfillment. People want to be recognized. People want self-esteem. So make it immediate and regular and specific. Don't say well done today. What was well done? The way you dealt with that complaint was absolutely fantastic. The way you did that for that client in the special, that was great. Be specific about it. And there's no better time to start to get a culture of praising, not just leaders to subordinates, but colleagues to colleagues need to say thank you a lot more. Just the simple words thank you, to show that you're actually empathizing and you've actually got a heart. I think that's really important. And finally, some idea of celebration and reward. There's a lot of talk now about things called gamification, which is make it into a sort of a game, make things into a game if you can. Try and make your success stories or the things you're trying to achieve, your objectives and your goals, put them into a league table or try and make them into a clock or whatever it might be. We have a thing in one of my businesses where we have a wheel of fortune. So if somebody makes a sale of a certain amount, you spin this wheel and you win a prize, and everybody stops, goes up to the wheel, spins the wheel to win whatever it is. One of them in one business is just toy cars. They just win toy cars. It's a car business. So they just win and they collect little cars or little tokens on the front of the thing, or you get little badges. It's like playing on PlayStation, isn't it? You only play on PlayStation because you get rewards or you get towards the next level or you get applause or whatever it might be. It's exactly the same in life, really. We like the recognition that we've done well. So try and make it into a little bit of a success game story about how you might do that, which is really important, I think, in work, and make it visible. Some ideas you could have Post-it notes on, in different colors on people's to collect, that people might collect, like stars. Thank you very much. Things they do in Japan a lot. They have a visible office where people collect lots of Post-it notes saying, thanks, that was a great job, well done. So that's a good idea, maybe. You could have a team trophy. You could have a team of the day, team of the week. You've got 8 weeks from now till Christmas. So you could have a team of the week, the team behind the counter, the cafe, whatever it might be, the butchery. So you could do that to make people feel. You might think this is trite, but it's really important that people celebrate, I think. Handwritten thank you notes are great, not just typed, not just an email, but actually the MD, the owner, getting an actual postcard and actually writing on it, thanks very much, great job today. Wouldn't that be great? You could do 60 staff in 2 months if you did that. Not just for the sake of doing it. They have to have done something well, but you can always find something you can say thank you for, I think. So that goes down really well, especially in your own handwriting. Very unusual these days. That's a good idea, I think. A wall of fame, employee of the month, employee of the day, stick people's pictures up. That's really nice, really personal. Makes people feel really involved and engaged. On a team trophy as well. So you could do things like that. You could have a song, a celebration song. That's a bit Japanese, but you might not want to do that. There's lots of ideas. And I'm sure you've got your own. And I'm sure in this group today, you need to share those ideas between you. and giving gifts out, maybe, we give gifts to people. We do, the directors in one business, we cook breakfast once a week. So we get in early and cook or bring in breakfast. You could easily do that. You could easily cook breakfast for the start, but I bet you never do. I bet nobody really enjoys a meal in your own cafes, but they might, I don't know. But there's lots of ideas that you'll have better than me about your own business. And finally, I think, have fun, make it fun. You're in a festive time now. Don't be in the dumps. Don't think it's just going to be hard work. Think about it's Christmas. Start to have some fun, start to dress up, start to do special things, start to, just like watching Patch, whatever it is, just stick a red nose on and start to engage with people properly. People aren't going to a farm shop cafe to have a cup of coffee. I can get coffee anywhere. I'm going because it's an experience. I'm going because it's sort of nice ambience. I'm going because I can go shopping as well. It's quite nice. It's quite spacious. It's quite fresh. And people seem great. That's why I'm going. I'm not going for food and drink. I'm not really going to shop. It's an experience. But some of us aren't making it an experience. We're making it a bit of a chore. And so have fun with it. Have a game. We have lots of different games. We have a word of the week on the wall. So, word we don't know. We have to include it in meetings, or a stupid word you put on the menu which nobody will understand. They always have to ask, or something like that. It's really fun. Just do it fun. Or print your menu in Japanese and just say, would you like the English version? And just have a go, I think. So there you go. That's my little speech on motivation and the things we might think about. I've done 3 pages now of ideas, the actions that you might take away from this half hour, and then you can ask me some questions, and then Rob's going to conclude. But here's the ideas. I've got some ideas, and of course, Jenny can send you these slides perhaps as well. So my first idea is, on what I've learned over the last year, it's true, I've always known it, but from this year, something you need to perpetuate is you've got to increase your frequency of communication. You've got to communicate with your staff and your colleagues all the time, in different formats, but all the time, especially face-to-face. People really value that. And as we've grown, and certainly as we're busy, we don't. You've got to take the time to walk the floor and make, sometimes to a group in the morning maybe, but every individual as well. So make sure you do that. It's a really big action. It really pays back in spades. Try and review and revise your purpose and try and illustrate it somehow on a wall. Try and say, what are we here for? The freshest food in Derbyshire, whatever it might be. What are we all about? What's our core belief system? Apple's core belief system wasn't computers. It was, in everything we do, we challenge the status quo. That was what their purpose was, challenging the status quo. Nothing to do with electronics. What's yours? And print it so people get it. Great time to do that. Visualize the values. I've shown you some photographs. Try and visualize what the values are. Important for you to remember, important to tell us how to behave as colleagues, but massively important to customers who come in and say, this is what we believe as a farm shop. This is what we're true to. And no matter what happens, we'll be true to it. We'll be authentic towards it. So try and visualize them, good idea. Try and check in with people, see where they are on that emotional map, see what leadership style you need to. If you need to coach, through this adversity, through this time of hard work, then coach them. Spend much more time individually with people. And they're emotional beings, and there are different phases of emotion and different strengths and different weaknesses and different degrees of vulnerability. And, it's very hard to do this as leaders, because leaders normally don't feel vulnerable because they know what's happening. Well, other people might not know what's happening in so many words. So try and coach them and check in with them frequently. I think that's a really good idea. You can start and keep. Maybe create some celebratory techniques as well, and create a personal well-being regime for yourself. So when you get home tonight, say, I am going to change my diet. I am going to drink more water. I am going to do more exercise. I'm going to take more rest. I am going to curtail my working hours a little bit. I am going to get healthy. Whatever you might, I am going to re-engage and go to work tomorrow with energy. So try and do, we always say, don't we, Jan the 1st, and we never do it because Jan the 5th, we think, well, I'll start next year. It's a good time to start a little resolution on some strange day like November the 8th. January the 1st is never going to work because we've always eaten too many Christmas cake, turkey, curry. Stay authentic to your belief system. Don't compromise your actions or your behaviors just because we're busy. Stay authentic to what you believe as a boss, and people will trust that and believe that, and that opens, that honesty will engage trust throughout the whole organization. Try and choose your appropriate style and empathize with that style to people that you might talk with. Try and think, but this person really needs a lot of coaching. This person really needs a lot of support. This person really needs to be told what to do. And this person, they need to be delegated. They're flying. Just try and choose. Don't be the same person with everybody, because not everybody receives the same way or is at the same level of emotional on their emotional journey. So try and choose your style properly. Try and visualize the values. Try and check in and coach through advert. Oh, this is actually the same. Just illustrate success as best you can. Try and launch December as a new, just try and relaunch the business in December, not just for Christmas. Try and relaunch some of the things you might want to do differently. I think that's a good idea. Try to make any constraints you feel you've now got, like the cafe shut or whatever you might not be able to do, try and realize them as opportunities. If that was the case, what opportunities could we do, or what could we embed that we're now having to do, which actually makes much more sense and is much more profitable? So try and do those things. Try and innovate as much as you can. Try and, it's the same word in Japanese, the workplace I started. Try and innovate and try and think about what things have we learned that have been really adding value, which we now could consolidate in 2021. Some people won't like that, but I think you've got to do that. I don't use the word new normal. I don't like that idea. Try and keep a tally of recognition events. Try and have a wall of fame, or try and have some sort of employee of the month, or try and have some graph of success, or graph of sales, or graph of how many things you've done, whatever it might be. Try and make it visual, because people like games, really. Celebrate often and frequently, and every morning, every day, praise every day. And try and make the very hard work you're going through really enjoyable and fun. Just be very wacky about it. Be slightly outside the box, slightly off the wall, maybe slightly un-PC about it. It's Christmas, for heaven's sake. So, yes, it's hard work, but don't forget you're in a business which is successful. And the fact that if you're working hard, you're successful. And if you're successful, you'll make money. And if you make money, you'll survive. And if you survive, we'll all be wealthy and healthy and there for the future for our children, I suspect. So that's great. So there will be cracks, won't there? There will be things that fall through cracks. And there's a great word in Japanese which is called kintsukori, and it looks like this, and it means fixing with gold. So I look at the future of our world in these farm shops as, yeah, there'll be cracks and things will have gone wrong and things will have gone slightly untidy and things will have got very busy and people got very depressed and quite stressed. But in the end, if you innovate and are creative about what you've learned, you can make a much stronger organization going forward. And it's a lovely word. And there's an example of kintsukori, which is a pottery pot, which has been fixed with a very special glue with gold or silver. And actually, what you end up with is probably better than what you started with, the cracked product. So I really want to leave you with that. So thanks very much for listening. Very short talk. I think one of those slides was slightly wrong, so I'll alter it before I send it to Jenny. And good luck with a very fun and a very exciting Christmas. And I'll hand you back. Well, I think Jenny might moderate some questions if you've got some. I'm still here. And then Rob's going to finish. So I'll just stop sharing these slides if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Malcolm. So yeah, if anybody has any questions or comments, please do pop them in the chat group and we'll stay on and answer and discuss between us. So I'm just going to pop us into gallery view now so you can see us all. Some really good takeaways there, I think. Rob?
Oh, well done, Malcolm. You've been absolutely awesome again. You've been inspirational. You've lifted me. I feel you've given me some tools to lift the team.
Yeah.
I'll go through what I wrote down.
Do you feel there's some actions to come out, Rob? You might actually go away and do now, based on that.
I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, Malcolm. I've got that at the end. So, yeah, the staff low morale. We haven't been investing in the team. We've just been expecting them to get on with the job. And you brought that home to me, and I thought, yeah, there's a feeling there. And we haven't given them clarity on why we're doing what we're doing, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
I really liked it when you said this country's going to be flying. I really hope so. That's the first.
It is. No, it is. It is.
Yeah. No, you're not here to be average. You are here to be awesome. I think that's a really good statement.
Yeah.
People can't operate at a level higher than you are operating at. I always try and come down and be full of it. And some days I do get dragged down, and it does show if I'm like that. You feel that everybody's like that. So
well, and you don't just feel it, Rob. They are like that. If you're down, I'm down.
So, yeah, I try my best. Build trust, be honest and open. I think we're very good at that. There's our values here on the wall.
Yeah.
Really good at the values. Yeah. Value every player. Praise, praise, and praise. And right at the start, you put gamification. I thought, what the hell is that? I now know what that is, and I really like that idea. So, so on the back of that, I'm going to give everybody a hug in my team. I'm going to sit them down and ask them how they are. We're going to go through every single one of them.
Good.
Recognition and rewards. I think Susan, my HR person's been on this meeting, and I'm going to sit down and, how can we reward these people with a bit of gamification and have some fun? Revisit why we do and what we do, work out our purpose and tell people, the team and the customers.
Yeah.
Increase communication to the team and make it fun. And we're going to relaunch December.
Yeah.
I've written all that down there. So that's me, Malcolm.
That's great, Rob. Well, you've done more than most, maybe. That's really good. That's really good. I think this December will be really exciting for people, because I think people will be at home. And I think people will spend money. I think people have got money. And I think there's nothing else to spend it on. And I think they're going to have a great time. And I think what's better than going to a farm shop and buying great food?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So, any questions from anybody, Jenny?
We've got something just coming from Kay from Croots there. Loved it overall and some great ideas. Any thoughts on how, when getting all the team together, there are one or two people pulling the morale down?
Yeah, I think you can't exclude them. And the main thing is, I would take them to one side, because some people in an organization become cynical, don't they? Very cynical. And you sort of, and there's a long-term answer to that question. Of course there is. But in the short term, if you want a little team meeting, I think is great at lunchtime or first thing in the morning or last thing at night. And if you do celebrate success, I think even the cynics will start to think, God, we actually do things which are quite good. It's been a tough day, but actually some client said that, a customer said that, we did that exceptionally, and you learn those stories. I think that's quite uplifting. And also I think as a leader, if you don't balk it, is you've got to go to those people might be negative and say, I know these team meetings are, you think they're a bit dull, they're a bit boring, you get on with work, but actually they're really important because people really value them. And it'd be great if you came and just listened. That would be nice to me. And people, it sort of deflates the cynicism to some degree. So I would do that. What you can't do is say you're not coming because you're down. You can't do that. So I think there's some ideas. And if those meetings are good news only, then of course you will get inspired by them. You see, people always think meetings are bad news, and maybe they always are. If you had just a sunshine meeting of this is how well we've done today, this is what things people have said about us, just sequester the good news. People quite like going to that, how well you've done today. So I'd recommend that.
Thank you, Malcolm. Well, I can't spot anything else coming in on the chat group, but as Malcolm said, I'll follow up with all the slides that Malcolm kindly shared, as well as the recording of this presentation. Thank you so much, Malcolm, for joining us today. It's very much appreciated. And Rob, I'll just let you sign off and say goodbye, if that's all right. I'll hand over to you.
I'll just ask you a quick question, Jenny. If anybody wants to join the FRA, what do they need to do?
So yeah, I will follow up from this session with an email. You'll all have my contact details on there. It's nice for you to hopefully have a face to the name now. You know who's been emailing you and contacting you. We're always at the end of the phone and on email, so do get in touch if you've got any questions. And yeah, we'd love to chat to you and welcome you to the group.
Right, thank you very much, everybody that's listening. Thank you very much, Jenny, for organising this, and thank you, Malcolm. You've been awesome again.
Pleasure. Lovely to talk to you all. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.